Where do public menorahs come from? How did this menorah come to be here?
Who did this?
It was my father, Rabbi Abraham Shemtov, who is the national director of American Friends of Lubavitch. Rabbi Shemtov.
The Rebbe always taught that the world is reachable and should be reached. I thought at that time, why don't I take the light of the menorah and bring it in a way in which it will reach the outside? At that time, I heard that there is on the staff of President Carter someone whose name sounded Jewish.
So Rabbi Abraham Shemtov, who I had never met before, called me up from Philadelphia and said he had to see me on an urgent matter. He came to my West Wing office, which was just above the President's office, the Oval Office. Rabbi Shemtov, what can I help you with? Well, he said, I've gone to the National Park Service to try to get a permit to put up a very large menorah in Lafayette Park across the street from the White House, and it's been turned down. I immediately called Cecil Andrus, who was the Secretary of the Interior, and that's what led to the menorah lighting. The next step was to make sure we cleared the President's schedule so he could participate in the lighting. And the President had a state dinner for Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher from the UK. And he was flexible enough and felt it was important enough so that he came over in his tuxedo. I had my wife Fran bring both boys, Jay and Brian, and then we arranged to meet with the President and go across the north lawn of the White House to Lafayette Park.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor and a privilege to stand here facing the menorah in the presence of the President of the United States, distinguished members of the Cabinet,
and the administration, members of Congress,
dear colleagues, members of the Jewish community and fellow Americans,
and to represent the American Friends of Lubavitch.
Lubavitch is the international Jewish movement that is dedicated to promotion and advancement of ideal education. It is in this context that the American Friends of Lubavitch presents this national menorah.
In this way, we share the message of Hanukkah with the world at large. Hanukkah reminds us
that commitment and dedication will prevail over numbers. The Hasmoneans long ago in the Hanukkah story were few and outnumbered. But just as their steadfastness overcame the mighty and the many, so may we, in our days, see the triumph of spiritual values over materialism
and see the restoration of peace to the entire world, freedom for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
It's a real honor for me to come from the White House here to this ceremony celebrating the commencement of Hanukkah.
The ceremony was short, but it was incredibly moving.
We pray that this will prevail, this desire to be free and to maintain life.
And it was the beginning of a worldwide movement of lighting menorahs all over the world, and of now taking what was a very small ceremony, there couldn't have been more than 50, 60 people there, into one of 2,200 people.
It's become the premier event of Hanukkah in the world, and we're delighted to put this together and make sure that what the sages dreamt of many years ago when they ordered us to publicize the miracle and the story of Hanukkah, that we now have a vehicle to do that in the most elaborate and widest fashion.
The Rebbe taught us that place in the menorah to the outside does not mean just not inside. Outside means outside. And if outside means outside, that means it can be done and therefore it should be done. And if it can be done and should be done, then it becomes the mission and the order of everyone who is here to do the best to fulfill this message of reaching out to the outside. He taught us that the message of Hanukkah is to bring light, to dispel the darkness, to everyone in their own lives and own way, and that's what we're here for. Happy Hanukkah.